Okay, we now welcome on to the show another special guest. He's the head of domestic first team scouting, player scouting at Bournemouth. It is Andy Howe. Andy, thanks for joining the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
Of course. So getting started with a little bit about your career, how did you first get into the recruitment side of football?
Well, I'll go back to sort of how I first got into football, really. So I think, like most people, we all have this dream of becoming a professional footballer. But I quickly sort of realised when I was about 14 that I was never gonna, hit the heights of being a professional. So I thought, how else can I sort of get or stay in the game or forge a career in the game? So I went down the route of doing my coaching badges. So at the age of 15, straight away I was, volunteering around the local area in Bournemouth, helping around there. And then I went on to do my coaching badges and did my level 1, did my level 2. Within that time, I was working voluntary within Bournemouth Academy, whilst doing some stuff with sort of the Dorset FA as well. And at the age of 21, I then did my UEFA B. And then from there on, pretty much, I sort of worked my way up really. So I went from working in the academy at Bournemouth for about sort of 2-3 years. I then took up the development centres role, heading up that region within Dorset, which was over 250 players at the time, and it was probably one of the most successful development centres that it had been within that era, with the number of players that we brought through into the academy. And then from there, I was very big on getting myself in as watching as many games as possible, really, whether that was locally, TV. I'd always ask the first team manager if I could go and watch first team training, and he happily let me come in, and I'd always go along, and I'd be there with my notepad writing down my notes and what was happening in training. And from there, that sort of forged an opportunity in recruitment. The owner at the time, Eddie Mitchell, he called me into his office and he said, like, look, you're always around at the football club, you're working hard, and I'd love to offer you a contract within the recruitment team. And at the time, there's only 2 of us. So that's kind of how it came about, really.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you said you got your UEFA B license, I think when you were 21. Do
Yeah.
you see yourself moving into coaching as you move on into like further into your career, or do you want to stay on the recruitment side?
Well, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, then I'd have been definitely down sort of the coaching route. But I think that now I'm very much within the recruitment world and the scouting world, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think that, so my next sort of progression and journey is to one day become a technical director at a football club. But yeah, and I'm very much enjoying the recruitment and the scouting world. But I think doing my coaching badges has helped me to kick on in this side of the industry as well.
Yeah. How big is the team that you currently work on with the recruitment?
So our department has 12 individuals. So I head up the UK side, and there's a team of 6 of us, and so obviously that's half the department. But our bread and butter is the domestic market, the UK market. Hence why there's a high number of scouts within that team. And then the other guys that within that department, they'll be out there scouting the other leagues, for example, potentially like Germany, Spain, Italy, and then obviously you've got the analyst guys as well that would do the stat side.
How have your routines as a scout changed since COVID hit?
They've changed a lot, that's for sure. I've gone from being on the road maybe 4 or 5 days of the week to now spending all my time in the living room watching games on my laptop. So it's been a drastic change, but in some ways, you have to find the positives from a real bad situation. Thankfully, we've got obviously like Y Scout, so any game that's been played during lockdown or during COVID times, we've been able to watch them within 24 hours. So we've actually, the workload's probably increased a lot more, because obviously the time that you would have spent driving or on a train or in a plane, you've now recouped that time back, so there's more games to watch on video. But it's changed a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like now there's definitely just more accessibility, right, to games. You can just watch them wherever and whenever you want.
I completely agree. Like I said, for example, I watched the championship game this morning. I watched an MLS game yesterday, and then the day before that, I was watching a game, saying League One in England, and the day before was an under-23s game. So you can literally just watch any game at the drop of a hat. So
do you
Yeah.
see like a lot of people now in the U.S. at least, a lot of people are recognizing how much of their work they can do from home and like not returning to work like the same way in the future? How do you see this affecting your job? Do you feel like it'll be more watching games online or still going to games in person?
I think it has to be a fine balance, really, because I think, you know, in my eyes, you have to go and watch players live because you get a greater feel for, you know, what they physically look like, how quick they are on the pitch, because it's so difficult to watch on video. Just actually, you know, to see how quick they'll, you know, see their physical build. You can see a lot more in terms of how they're dealing with the fans. Are they taking instructions from the manager? You know, how do they respond to, say, if the fans are giving them abuse, etc. Those things you can't see on video. So I don't think it would change too much, but I think it's definitely showed a way to be a lot more smarter in how you choose your games when you do go live. And obviously using the video platform, you've like, especially during the last sort of 12 months, we've probably covered a lot more players than we probably initially would have done just because of more time available to spend on your laptop.
Yeah, understood. So outside of a player's ability on the field, what are some important factors that you like to evaluate off of the field?
Good question. Off the field, I'm very big on, you know, someone that's, you know, got a real professionalism about them. They work hard, they're willing to listen and learn and to take information on. I think that's massive really with any footballer, especially like the younger ones as well, that they've got the hunger to listen and to want to learn. And obviously, well, to be honest, is mainly just attitude. That's probably the biggest thing, and you know, you can go further into how they live their life, but that's you know, that's what they get up to. But obviously, you want someone that's just professional. That's the most important thing. Someone that lives and breathes football and wants to, you know, wants to do well, wants to improve and try and get to the furthest that they possibly can in their career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forget what I was gonna say. But yeah, with so also too with just everything online too. Now I feel like a lot of times people are watching videos, just highlight videos now. Is that something you're doing a lot, or are you watching more full games?
Well, I've got social media, so I've got Instagram, Twitter, and I see all the highlight reels that go around on social media, and like instantly it can grab your attention, but I think it's very dangerous to, you know, analyze a player like that. I think you have to really go back and watch a proper game as one, because you know, a best actions reel is dangerous, because like I could make myself look unbelievable at football with a best actions highlight reel, even though it probably take a lot of editing, that's for sure. But I think it's good in a sense that it can highlight potential prominent names from maybe leagues that we're not looking at as much. That's probably the only benefit of it. Say from my side, say if I was looking on social media and there was a highlights reel, it'd be like, okay, that's interesting. Let me do a bit more research, maybe watch a game on Y-Scout, and then if it's worth taking forward, we can take it forward. If not, then that's where it stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I was on Instagram. I was scrolling yesterday, and I saw this video. It was a guy playing basketball, and the guy edited it, and it just looked, the way it just was edited, like it probably made him just look way better than he actually was. So I feel like that definitely is something you probably come across. But yeah,
No,
you think
You can play tricks with it.
Yeah,
you can definitely spice it up a little bit, make it look a little better than it actually is.
exactly, especially when you put a bit of music to it as well.
Yeah.
you get slow-mo going. But so what you're saying before is that you like to see the games in person because you can pick up on like what the coach is saying and they're applying
Hmm.
that. Is there anything else besides that really that you look for like watching somebody live?
I guess you can look at also how they're adapting to the formation and if the formation changes as well. And you can hear a lot more as well. That's the one thing, especially with say COVID times. I've been fortunate to go into a few games live where there's been no fans, and there's no place really to hide now because say if there was 50,000 fans, you might not be able to hear if that player's talking. But say, for example, the other week I saw a centre back playing and, he's 24, 25 years old and he was a mute, like wasn't talking at all. And instantly you're thinking, okay, that's not particularly what I would want from a player who, who's a centre back who can see the whole pitch, who should be talking, organising to his teammates. And that was not a red flag, but it was certainly a question mark going, okay, I've seen this in one game, let me see if I can see common trends. So fortunately I was able to go back a couple of weeks later and exactly the same thing again. It was really, really quiet, didn't say anything, and things like that, especially during this COVID times, I think are massive, and things that you can only pick up if you go there live, whereas on video you can't see that. You can see a few arms going around, but that doesn't mean anything. I could throw a few arms around and it looks like I'm actually doing something.
So how long have you been at Bournemouth now? Close to a decade, if I remember reading correctly, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So I joined in 2012. So yeah, 8 years going on 9 years. So it's been a long time.
So you've been at the club since they were in League One all the way up to the Premier League.
Hmm.
What would you attribute to that crazy run of form all the way up to the Premier League? Like what were the key attributes that helped the club make that incredible jump?
I think, well, firstly, it was fantastic work from Eddie Howe, Jason Tyndall, and the rest of the coaching staff, and also the players that went on that journey. But I think as one, really, it was the collective drive as a whole football club to achieve the best that we possibly can, and we all wanted to get there. We never thought you get to the Premier League as quickly as we did, but we all had that dream, and it was all wanting to work and to strive towards it. And I think that's the biggest thing, and that if you're trying to you know bring success, you need everyone alongside you. And I think that was the one thing that contributed to our success in that journey, was everyone was there you know all the way.
In 2012, when you joined the club,
Mhm.
was it on your radar that one day you would be a Premier League club, or was it something that kind of just happened?
It was the owners ambitions to become a Premier League club. I just don't think it was expected to happen as quickly as it did, because we got promoted in that first season in League One, when the new manager came in, and then we had 2 years in the Championship, and obviously that second year we got promotion, and then we spent 5 years in the Premier League, and obviously now we're now in the Championship, but second of the table, and looks like we're going to get promoted again.
Definitely. So now kind of shifting gears towards US soccer. I know you told me that you are a fan of the MLS, you enjoy watching some games. Uh, how does Bournemouth as a club kind of rate the US market, the emerging MLS market with a lot more talents coming out of there? And how much time and effort are you putting into to scout from that league?
Yeah, the MLS is a league that I'm really interested in. Like, I think there's lots of talent coming out there, and I think it's been getting better uh, every year. And it's from when I first started watching it, probably thinking maybe 5 years ago, like properly watching it. I used to watch it loosely, but probably watching it 5 years ago, it's come on leaps and bounds, and it's only going to get bigger and better. And as a football club, like, we scout it. The only difficulty that we do have is, say, the work permit situation, which does make it difficult. Obviously, say for example, if we didn't have those difficulties, then probably a lot more Americans would be in England than where they are in Germany, because of obviously their work permit situations. It's a lot easier for them to sign those lads. But yeah, it's a league that has got endless amount of potential and a lot of talent coming through. It's exciting, really.
Yeah. Somebody who we are big fans of is Alphonso Davies, and he came. I mean, he's not American, but he came from the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
He signed when I think he was super young to Bayern. So, how does somebody like that come onto your radar? You know, like how early on would you be hearing about them and then looking at their film and their games?
Yeah, well, we have a sort of a structure to how it works. So I would be, you know, looking to make sure that we're covering every team, and you know, our profiles are to try and find players of, you know, 16 to sort of 27. So instantly those players would be on our radar, where we would look at our our spreadsheets, and instantly we'll be then looking, right, okay, we need to go watch this player at this club, like he started playing. We can then use, you know, the stats. We could use Tableau to point us in the right direction of going, right, this player is playing X amount of minutes and he's, you know, 16 years old. So yeah, they quickly come on the radar, that's for sure.
And around how long is the recruitment process for you? Like from when you identify the player to when you potentially may sign the player?
Again, good question. It varies really, depending on, you know, the player. Like I know for a fact that we've probably tracked a player maybe for 4 or 5 years before we've ended up signing them, because yes, we always, you know, we'll always see that they've got potential, but it's trying to make sure that you sign the player at the right time as well, because you don't want to sign a player too early, especially when you're trying to, you know, bring them into your environment. So it's all about timing, really. And there's been plenty of examples where, you know, we've been tracking them for 4 or 5 years, and, you know, they'll go through real highs and they'll go through real dips, especially with the younger players. And it's them making sure that you just, you know, keep reporting on them, keep watching them. And then when the time's right, that's when you then push towards the manager to then get the player signed.
Mm-hmm. So the timing thing you're just talking about, when you moved up from League One all the way up to like the first first league, was that a big factor? Is like because you don't want people, like the people you would be recruiting for League 4 are probably a lot different than the people you're recruiting for the Premier League. So is that a big factor in that, the timing aspect?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, like, for example, over the years, when we say we're on our journey, the manager's always said about, like, he will give us the, you know, the targets of what he wants per player, like whether he wants, you know, an up and coming, you know, right back, or if he'd want a starting right back. So we will have those players within our database, and, you know, we can then find the right ones, and then whether you know, it's doable and financially possible, that's when, you know, we can then push it forwards.
So you also told me that you had been watching Yunus Musa since his early days at Arsenal with, I think you said, the U18s.
Mm-hmm.
Just how high of a ceiling do you think that he has as a player?
Yeah, so I saw him at Arsenal under 18s. I think this must have been about 2 years ago, 18 months ago. And he played left midfield in the game. And, you know, I think watching him play... Here's what I found. That was embarrassing.
No worries.
Let me just mute that, sorry. Yeah, so when I watched Yunus Musa, the other day, he played obviously for the US national team against Wales, and he played in his, you know, in what I believe is his best position, central midfield. And I thought, you know, he'd done really well in the game, and, you know, his ceiling is as high as he possibly wants it to be. He's got a lot of, you know, really positive attributes and qualities to what he is as a modern day sort of midfielder. So I think is, you know, for however much he wants to achieve, then, you know, he can reach that ceiling, that's for sure. And I think he's got a real bright future with the US national team.
Were you surprised when you saw that he, I guess, had chosen the US national, like the first team?
Well, I know he'd been within the England youth setup.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm probably not surprised because I think the US national team have done very well and, picking up everyone that have got dual citizenships and dual nationalities. So I think they've done that superbly well. And if you're being given the opportunity to play for a national team, then yeah, 100%. I was a little bit surprised, but at the same time, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I had no idea he was able to represent the U.S., but I think it definitely makes sense because it's quite a bit harder to get into the England setup right now with kind of the attacking talent that they have, even within the midfield. So not really surprised, but he just wasn't really even on my radar personally because I always thought he was going to represent England. I didn't know he was born in New York or wherever he was born.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have. Chuck, do you have any others?
I'm not sure. Let me think. Sorry, I'm on a different laptop than I normally am because my software on it just stopped working, so I have to use.
No, that's right. Yeah, you can, guys. You can ask me anything you want. Hopefully, I've been all right so far. Apologies if they seem a bit,
No,
regimented.
you're all good. Was the Musa question okay? I know you didn't want any like specific names, but I figured that was like further enough removed from.
Yeah, no,
Bournemouth.
I think that'll be fine as long as, yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
It should be fine. I'll listen to it back, but I don't think I said anything I shouldn't have said.
No. Yeah, you were good. I'm pretty sure.
So I got a question for you. I mean, you've been at the team for 8 years, in your role. In the players that you've scouted, what have been the most successful like traits, I guess, that they have possessed? Because I feel like probably varies position by position. So maybe just as just a player, a professional, like what are some traits you've seen that have made the most successful players?
Well, obviously, in my time with Bournemouth, so it's been what 9 years. There's been plenty of trades, plenty of sales over that time. We signed Callum Wilson for between 2 to 3 million, and then we sold him on for 20 million this summer to Newcastle. Nathan Aki was someone that we initially tried to buy, but we got on loan, and then after his loan, we then managed to buy him for 20 million, which we then managed to, sell to Man City this summer for 40 million. Aaron Ramsdale, who we just sold to Sheffield United, he was someone that we signed for 850,000, and then within 3 years, we've managed to sell him for 20 million to Sheffield United. Yeah, so we've got plenty of players within our squad that that can even go even further. It's just as a club we haven't particularly sold many players over the years because I think that's probably been one of the reasons why we've had so much success is that we've been able to keep our core squad all together all the way through, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How much time then would you say then of your day, like day in day out, are you watching soccer?
Probably too much. That's for sure. It's like, for example, I'll get up probably maybe about 7 a.m, and more so with the COVID times, you're not leaving your house, so I'm probably at my laptop by 7:30, and where the day just goes by, I'll probably still be at my laptop by like 6 o'clock at night. So I'll probably be able to get through maybe 2 games a day, but obviously that's then writing the reports as well. Mm-hmm. So if you work it out in 2 games a day, it's over the 7 days. I'll probably have 1 day off because I think it's important to have 1 day off. That's for sure. Yeah, but definitely it's 2 games a day for 6 days of the week.
How long does it take to get you through a game? Like, because I probably assume you're probably pausing to write notes down. Is that true, or does it take longer than?
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't take 90 minutes. That's for sure. Because you're pausing, you're rewinding, because you always want to see like, okay, could this defender maybe have done better in this 1v1 situation? Why did he struggle if he got beaten that 1v1? Was it his footwork? Was it his positioning? Was it his body shape and how he went to approach the man? So you're constantly, pausing, watching a normal time and then rewinding just to try and, analyze everything to make sure that your report is, got all the right detail in it.
Yeah, I'm curious, can you still watch a game like for pleasure, or does it kind of like take the pleasure out of it because whenever you'd watch, you're always on work mode and analyzing and taking notes?
Yeah, I always say to myself that I'm gonna try and watch a game for pleasure, and then I end up start writing notes on players, and it's like it's probably a good thing because it means that I'm always working and I'm always gaining better knowledge on other players that I've probably already seen or may have not seen, but definitely I probably don't enjoy a game of football for pleasure anymore. Probably the last time I did was before I got into this football job.
Yeah, you're watching Champions League. Next thing you know, you got notes on Karim Benzema. Bournemouth's going to bring him in.
Who knows? So for you too, as the scout now, you said you're watching 2 games a day. Are those games are you like in those games? Are you watching players you guys have had your eyes on for a while now, or are you watching games of more players like emerging players or of that nature?
It's very mixed, to be honest. So it would be very much, some games would be emerging players. So the ones that, say, for example, where you used the Alphonso Davies analogy earlier, any players that have come through or we've not reported on as of yet because they've just made their debut, I'll be watching those games. Then I'll be watching ones where, myself or the rest of the scouting team are, at a stage of just monitoring a player. And it's like, well, now we need to understand if we need to, elevate this player or if we just keep him where he's at. And then also I'll then be watching players that, need to be pushed up as well, ready for, say, presentations for the manager. So it's a pretty much, a mix of everything. And I think that's the only way to do it, really.
Yeah. So presentation for the manager. How do you determine, or is there like it's probably varies player to player, but is there like a certain step in the process where you think like, oh, this player's ready to be presented to the manager?
Yeah, it'd be difficult for me to answer that like in a certain way.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm curious, so who has the final say on transfers at Bournemouth? Is it the manager or is it somebody within the front office, like a chairman?
The final say is, I think, a collective one, and that's from the manager to the recruitment team, and I think that's the best way of working as well. But that's how everything's been done as today.
Mm-hmm. So you're like a member of the recruitment team. Does that entail you going and communicating with the player, saying like, oh, we're Bournemouth, we're interested. This is kind of like selling Bournemouth to them as well. Is that part of your job?
Yeah. So for example, we'll always be watching players, and then we'll have to, at the right times. I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but at the right times, we'll reach out to their agents. And
yeah, no tapping up, nothing illegal going
yeah,
on.
no tapping up. But just when the timing's right, when things have been agreed between clubs, that's when you then reach out to the agents and you start talking to them, progress it further to to then make them a Bournemouth player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for you, is that what aspect do you kind of the job do you like more? Is it discovering the players or kind of selling the players on Bournemouth?
I think in the recruitment world, you have to be, the most excited for discovering players.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as you've brought a player in, you're instantly then trying to find the next one because you never know what could happen. Like that player could do unbelievably well for 6 months, and then a bigger club comes in and takes him. And so I think from my side, you always have to be most excited about discovering players, bringing players in, and then trying to find the next one. That's the biggest thing that I get the buzz off.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously when they do well.
Yeah.
Well, that probably makes it very good to see. But now that Bournemouth's in the championship, that probably means you guys have a lot less money to work with. Is it been tougher for your like as a job this year, or is that
I would say there's been no real change. Like it just depends. The only change really is the areas that we're scouting. So for example, when we're in the Premier League, we'd have been scouting other Premier League teams, whereas at the minute, that's not our main focus. We have to prioritise on our main focus, which is say Championship, the other levels below, and as well as youth football. So we're just trying to find those next crop that can push us back up to the Premier League. So there's not really been too much change in terms of obviously finances, but there's been a slight change in say our main focus.
Yeah. So are you recruiting in hopes that you will be in the Premier League next year, or do you have to, as a club, first get promoted, then you can start recruiting talent that is fit for the Premier League? Or are you already looking at players in hopes that you will be promoted?
I think it's important that the players that you recruit, say for example for now, that you're recruiting for players that have got the attributes and the potential to then kick on and play in the Premier League, because there's nothing worse than say signing players for this level and then have to rebuild again for the next level. So it's difficult because you're trying to predict something that if a player can play at that level, but with the experience that we've got and everything that we do as a recruitment team, that if you can find the right players that have got the potential and the attributes to then play in the Premier League, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah. What is the what did you say is the tougher competition to compete in? Is it the Premier League or the Championship? Because in the Championship you're still fighting to get up into the Premier League. So what is it? Do you think?
And playing a lot more games.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it's a good question because both leagues are immensely tough. That's for sure. I think it's difficult really to compare because they're two unbelievable leagues and they're both as tough as each other really. Championship has just got more games and the games come thick and fast. I know that from the end of the transfer window that's just gone this summer to January, there was 18 games in the space of 2 months, which is just mental to have that many games in the space of 2 months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like an American college soccer season, basically.
Pretty much.
But yeah, it's I'd say both are immensely tough. Like both divisions are very, very challenging, but both exciting. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Is the answer to this question is probably definitely no. But I'm gonna just ask. So, have you ever looked at a college soccer player at all?
Personally, no. Not something that we've looked into. But I know that there has been, say, lads that have been college footballers and then gone into the MLS.
Yeah.
And then that's where we've then seen them.
Yeah.
So that's when we've become more aware
I'm pretty
of them.
sure. What's that? Wasn't Jack Harrison?
Jack Harrison, yeah, he was. I'm pretty sure he played 1 year of college in the U.S.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that. I know he got drafted into the MLS, but I don't know if he did it through college or not. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure you're correct with that. I remember in the draft, did he not sign for someone and then he then got traded on the day?
I think so, and then he got traded to New York City, I'm pretty sure.
That happens here.
And then they have like an affiliate with Manchester City in some way. I forget what the connection is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same owners or I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I think he's owned by City and he's on loan at Leeds.
Yeah, he's on loan at Leeds, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the only example I can think of where somebody that played college soccer made it to a high enough level. Like I'm sure there's tons of MLS guys, but they're not the better players in the league, so I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time looking at them.
Does the concept of just playing college soccer, that's probably just so foreign to you, right?
Yeah, it's completely foreign. Like I don't really know what it's like, what the level's like. I don't know too much about it. So yeah, it's completely unknown for me.
It's starting to fade out though, because now it used to be like you had to go to college to get drafted into the MLS basically, but now with all these homegrown contracts that the MLS clubs have. They're kind of investing more money into the youth, which is, I think that's kind of why youth development has picked up a lot in the last, say, 3 or 4 years, because the MLS academies are starting to invest more in the academies, because they're seeing that they can get a huge ROI on players like Brendan Aronson, Alphonso Davies, guys like that, Mark McKenzie, who's probably going to leave soon.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the MLS clubs are now signing the players younger? Whereas, because I know at college football did they not reach a certain age and then they were then able to then get traded? Is that right?
So it was weird because the MLS academies were still there, but the MLS academies would then develop the players. Then they would go off to college for however many years, and then they would get drafted. So it wasn't as worth it for these clubs to invest in the players, because then they lose them to college, and then it's basically a lottery in the draft. There's no guarantee that they're going to get them. But now it just makes more sense. Now the academy system is very similar to how it is in, say, England.
Okay.
Where it's like you can work your way up from 12 years old up until the first team.
Yeah, well, that would definitely help with bringing more talent through.
Yeah,
it works this
I
side.
agree.
That's good.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are starting, or not a lot, but some of the teams are starting to have partnerships with European teams. Like I know FC Dallas has one with Bayern Munich where they'll send some players. Like Chris Richards was one of them. They'll send some players over to Germany to train with them for a certain amount of time. That's what happened to him. He went over there, trained with them, and then I think they just offered him.
They liked him and they offered him a contract. Yeah.
Yeah, he played the other night, didn't he, in the Champions League?
He did. Yeah, he got the last 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Just pretty good.
It obviously shows that the club-to-club link's working.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see what else we got.
Yeah. It's funny though, the whole college thing though. It's funny because
it disrupts the system. It makes no sense.
It mirrors like the whole thing. It mirrors like that's how the NBA set up and like the NFL.
Okay.
You'll go to college and then get drafted from there just on the lottery system.
It makes sense for those sports, but I don't know why they try to do their own thing in the U.S. with soccer when they can just copy like a tried and trusted system that they know works.
They have all these systems in Europe that have been around for how long, and just want to do it their way.
And the college system completely disrupts all of youth development, because clubs literally, outside of MLS teams, no other clubs really have an incentive to develop players, because it's not like in England where they can you can buy like the rights to not the rights, but like you can say like Bournemouth, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bournemouth could buy like a 16-year-old kid and get him on an academy contract. Like you can't do that in the US as far as I'm concerned. You can only sign him to a first team contract.
Mm-hmm.
So now only MLS clubs really have an incentive to develop players, because all of the smaller clubs that don't have a first team, because there's no promotion relegation, they then have no incentive to develop players because they'll lose their best players to the MLS teams. So then it becomes like a pay-to-play system where you have to pay to play on these good teams to then get recruited to go play in college, and then that kind of just disrupts the entire system. Whereas if it was like more of a free market with promotion relegation, then smaller clubs have more of an incentive to invest in their youth. It's just not the case, which is kind of annoying, and it'll never change, just because of the fact that all these MLS owners invested a ton of money with the guarantee that they would always be in the top division. So they'll never switch it to a promotion relegation, not anytime soon at least, to a promotion relegation system. We had Lexi Lawless, I don't know if you know him, he's like a pundit, US soccer pundit.
Yeah,
and he said he thinks the only way it happens is if somebody starts an alternate league to the MLS. He says he doesn't think you could ever convince the owners to switch it, just because of the fact that they invested their money with the guarantee of staying in the top division. So outside of the MLS academies, not very many academies can really develop top talent, which is kind of crutching development in the US, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's difficult. That is difficult. But no, I'd probably agree with him in the sense that, someone would have to create an alternate league to challenge it.
Yeah.
That'd be super interesting. I don't really see that happening though anytime soon.
No, definitely not, because they've already invested so much money in the MLS that
Yeah.
it's unlikely they're going to find other. And they're still expanding it too. They're adding new teams like every couple of years, which is crazy.
I think a couple teams every few
Yeah.
years.
There's
Yeah,
like 30. They're close to 35 teams now, if I'm not mistaken. There's over 30 for sure.
yeah. I was going to say, I think there's like 4 new expansion teams coming in, isn't there soon?
Yeah, I think Austin,
You got Charlotte.
Charlotte. I can't think of the other ones. But
Sacramento.
Nashville just this was their first year, and they're still, or no, they lost, but they made it pretty far into the playoffs because they have what's his name? Ian Ayre, is that him? The guy who used to be the chairman of Liverpool, or I don't know what his title was, but he's done a really good job with them because that's pretty impressive. You saw, I guess Inter Miami made the playoffs this year too, but kind of helped they sign Matuidi and Gonzalo Higuain. It's not too bad signings.
Yeah, 2 good ones, that's for sure. Yeah, well, you got it should be interesting, the playoffs, because you've got what, Seattle.
Sporting plays some Minnesota tonight.
Yeah,
I think that's the last quarterfinal game.
yeah, and then you got Columbus and then New England Revolution, haven't you?
Right. Yeah, and then whoever wins tonight. We're rooting for Sporting because we had Gianluca Busio and their right back Jalen Lindsay. We had both of them on the show, so we're Sporting Kansas City fans for the rest of the playoffs because we had a couple we had one FC Dallas guy on.
Yeah.
But they got eliminated.
Yeah, I didn't realize they played.
Last round. They got knocked out in the last round, no?
Yeah, to see.
They did to Seattle, and then we had on. We were really rooting for Colorado because we'd had on 3 of their players. We had on Bassett, Kellen Acosta, and Jonathan Lewis. We had those 2 guys on, so we were rooting for them.
Yeah, we wanted them to do well.
But it's also a good thing they kind of got eliminated because now Bassett's in with the national team camp this week.
So is Acosta.
So it's Acosta too, yeah. So that's a good opportunity for them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like looking at the US national team, like for the fact that going back to the talent pool that say Greg's got to choose from. So like obviously the European tour that they did where they went to Wales. He's had a European selection of players for the national team, and now he's chosen an MLS squad, hasn't he now?
Yeah, it's all MLS guys.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like,
and then he's gonna have another one in January.
Hopefully that's joint. I want to see everybody together.
Yeah, good luck trying to choose the best team from that.
Yeah, right. Because there's so many young guys that are like pretty, like as of now, none of them have really emerged, like separated themselves from the pack, but they're all like have a ton of potential. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of like over the next year how they separate themselves. I think there's like the squad we see now compared to what it'll be, hopefully qualified for the World Cup this time around in 2022. Yeah. I think there'll be like a couple guys that break out that you won't necessarily, that you'd be surprised, I would say.
I feel like one who has stuck out is definitely Gio Reyna as one of the younger guys. Like,
I mean, yeah. Gio Reyna's a beast. I mean, I think he's got the best assist to minute ratio in the Bundesliga or something like that.
Yeah,
he just turned 18.
He's done very well in the Bundesliga. Done very well. And well, you got the 2022 World Cup, and then you've got the 2026 World Cup, which you guys are hosting.
Home soil, yeah. It's I think it's a tri-country thing. It's Mexico, US, and Canada, which will be kind of interesting because that's a lot of ground to cover. That's like, I guess they did it in Russia. It worked, right? That's probably like not that far off the size of Russia. Although most of the Russian stadiums were probably on the east coast of Russia or the east side. It's like more populated.
Definitely a bright future for you guys anyway, because for both of those tournaments, I think I've got high hopes for how US soccer goes in it. That's for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It just came out of nowhere. This development, this like boom of players. Like you look at the squad from like 3 years ago to today, and it's like night and day difference. I think we had 7 players start in the Champions League this match week or something crazy like that, which is like
7,
unprecedented. Before, all we had was like, I'm trying to think, even like DeMarcus Beasley played for PSV Eindhoven. That's like the closest thing that I can think of off the top of my head to like a Champions League player. I guess Pulisic has been there for a little bit at Dortmund, but it's crazy the shift that's occurred.
Yeah, it's been like a real drastic shift, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's just it's almost like it's happened overnight. But I
Yeah.
think it's always been, on the horizon, because I remember I went to the South Korea under-20 World Cup, and US were playing in that, and a lot of those lads that played in that tournament, are now in the national team.
Yeah.
So
Who's
it's
that?
amazing.
That's like the Richards, Ledesma. Trying to think who else. Who was in that squad, Chuck?
We had Tyler Adams.
Oh, Tyler Adams. Was Dest in that?
I think Dest was in it. If he wasn't, he was in one of the other tournaments just before.
Yeah.
Um,
McKennie probably. McKennie's a little bit older. He may have.
yeah. But yeah, so it's that was a few years ago now. I'm trying to remember. I think that was like 2017. But yeah, it's amazing to see that sort of shift of all those players now making that transition into the national team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of the success, though, I mean, obviously, is them going over to Europe and playing with the different development system and just the better players from a younger age,
Yeah, I mean, if Pulisic never went to Dortmund, I'm sure he still would be a good player, but I don't think he'd be at Chelsea right now. I don't think he'd be wearing the number 10 shirt at Chelsea. And same thing with Reina. If Reina was playing for New York City FC, he would still be a talent, but who knows? Who knows if he would be held in the same regard?
Yeah.
It is just a completely different level, which is good, but it's kind of it's too bad with the work permit situation in England, because I think a lot of guys would really love to transfer there, because like that's like the main league that kids grow up watching in the US is the Premier League. That's like the main. It's like that and probably the Bundesliga are like the two most televised, but the Premier League by far is the most televised league here. So it's like that would be like the dream for any American kid to go play in the Premier League. But the work permit situation kind of screws it up a little bit.
Yeah, and they just made a new work permit change as well just this week, actually, which is making it harder. So I think it's going to make it a lot harder to try and sign even European players as well.
Really?
Yeah, because it's been put all into a band system. I'm still reading through the document because it's sorry. One minute.
Why are they making it more strict? What's their reasoning behind?
Because
like tighter immigration laws, basically.
You know where the UK has obviously left the European Union, where we're leaving that. It's they've wanted to bring in their own work permit rules, so it's going to weirdly make it harder to try and sign players from Europe, and everything's being sort of put into band systems.
All right. I think that's all the questions we have for you, Andy. Thanks a lot for coming on. We really enjoyed talking with you, and good luck with the rest of your championship season. We'll hopefully see Bournemouth in the Premier League next year.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Anytime.